Hello, folks. With this New Year's folly having faded, our town was a ghost town today, driving around. Figured because a lot of people tend to drink alcohol and vibe. That'll be a near future video. Today I'm thinking about the idea of it really being our 11th month, not the new year. So, and then also, furthermore, that the number of months we have is erroneous based on the word of the based on the genesis of the word month, which is moon and the moon cycle. The moon cycle here is listed as being 29 or 30 days, but what I want to emphasize is that the word month has its roots in moon. In the original understanding, the moon goes through the 8 phases in 28 days. So 28 days is a full month cycle. So you could contend that February is the only month where you have that genuine full moon cycle being expressed. And they've since, through this Gregorian calendar, made most months about 30 days or 31, which is it's 2 to 3 day 10% deviation, 10% yeah difference from where it's supposed to be. So what I propose, what I've heard proposed before, I believe I heard this first on an Eric Dubay video years back, is 13 months, each of 28 days, which goes to 364 of the traditional 365 days of the calendar year. And then you have one free day at the end. So, yes, quote unquote, your birthday will be following on the same day of the week every year, every time. But that way, there aren't weird fluctuations. Things make sense. There's more purity and science behind how we track time than what we see today, which is confusing and isn't based in the genesis of it being the moon that represents the month. And there are further serious plain issues, plain as day issues. I always think of these as the burr months. Right, I grew out my beard for a while here. I shaved it recently. My partner had enough. She did it for me. Um, but during these burr months, we have to scratch our heads because we're calling September the ninth month, when here, as you can see, September was originally the seventh of 10 months of the ancient Roman calendar that began with March. It had 29 days after the reforms that resulted in a 12-month year. September became the ninth month but retained its name. So as you can see, this calendar reformation thing's been going on for a while. But I think if you look at it purely from the moon's perspective, you have the answer right there. They just have been making people confused. Babylon's been growing, and it's grown to where it is today, where people call the beginning of what should be the 11th month the new year. So September ought to be the 7th month. Obviously, October, octopus, ought to be the 8th. November, 9, Nova. And then December, Deca, what we just finished with, ought to be the 10th month. So then what I've recently thought about is the genesis of January. And that's Janus, the god Janus of Roman. When I think of Roman, also I think of the double or the second meaning, double meaning of Roman, roaming around, someone who's a traveler. I often think of Roman like that. So I think it's a very transitive word. It has been here forever, and it reminds me of when I went to a party when I was young, and the guys at the party said the only way we could get in is if we were rushing, as in we were rushing for the fraternity. And one of my friends was legitimately Russian, so he wasn't lying when he said, "Yeah, I'm Russian," because he is legitimately Russian. It's one of these things, yeah, where you have a double meaning. So the reason I'm thinking about this is the two pillars of Freemasonry. January would be the 11th month. So Janus, two faces, 11. Doesn't it make sense that January is the 11th month? Presided over the beginning and ending of conflict and hence war and peace. So I think of it as the mist of winter in the northern hemisphere, and that word in and of itself needs to be looked at with the magnifying glass. Maybe, I mean, it does make sense within the snow globe as well to call it a hemisphere. So We can call it that. Basically, when the sun's track is at its most inner, because the south is really the center, then you have this January happening. It's a month away from when it's at its most center. Then it comes back out again, and we have the northern hemisphere summer. So January, I believe it's this dual entity. I believe it's supposed to represent the 11th month. And then, interestingly enough, February is actually not named after a god. It's named after a purification feast called Februa. And looking into Februa, it's also known as Candlemas, and we'll read into this. So, Candlemas, also known as the Feast of the Presentation of Jesus Christ. So this may be a indicator of Jesus's death date. I'm not sure. Maybe it's February. Maybe it's December. If we pretend that it's 1-to-1, they flipped Easter and Christmas as they flipped the calendar. So that means that Christ died, or as you could think of, the sun goes to its lowest point in the northern hemisphere on December 21st. Yes, this is northern hemisphere centric, but just run with me here. So then Jesus would arise on what? The 22nd. He's still dead. 23rd. He's still dead. Third day. 24th. Christmas Eve. So then Christmas Day would represent him moving forward and being alive, I suppose. But in this context, the Feast of the Presentation of Jesus Christ, it could mean that we eat of his death. Sounds vampiric, but and that actually occurs in February, which is the end of winter in the northern hemisphere. So it's a Christian holiday commemorating the presentation of Christ at the temple. It is based upon the account of presentation of Jesus in Luke 22:40 under Leviticus 12. The woman was to be purified by presenting a lamb as a burnt offering, and either a young pigeon or dove as a sin offering, 33 days after a boy's circumcision. So sometimes you have to wonder about the finagling of these holidays and where they come from, and maybe this is more of the nonsense here. I mean, having it be specifically 33 days, their main number after a boy's circumcision, which is, again, as we've looked into, or as I haven't actually, no, maybe you guys haven't looked into, but maybe you definitely can look into the Gospel of the Holy 12. It does not go along with circumcision that the KJV and other Bibles tend to go along with. So this may be a pagan blood offering thing that has come about, and then they've gone about and been the correctors and adjusted the Bible so that circumcision becomes a central focal point. And here we are today, where people like myself have been circumcised and feel a bit like Robert Crumb, honestly, where I feel like I've been overly horny and unable to focus, where I think maybe it's perhaps I would have been had I not been circumcised. I don't know. It is odd. I feel like, it's equivalent to branding or tagging, but to stay on point with the calendar aspect, February having this great conclusive purification feast within it, and it being the only one that's not representative of a god, I think is indicative of this is our true calendar. And then, to be obvious and to set the point home, Mars marching. Think about it. You went to dormancy, you purified yourself, and then you come out again marching because you're purified. You're ready to go get your hands dirty again and go out into the world, or go back into the agora, social life, where you previously were in hibernation or dormancy. So yes, I do not celebrate this, what we celebrate January 1st as. It's erroneous. And then one other aspect I want to touch on before we go is the idea of the Southern Hemisphere. And yeah, they ought to celebrate it in their spring. Our September is fall, autumn in the Northern Hemisphere. And the Southern Hemisphere folks out there, they ought to celebrate their spring beginning, or sorry, their new year. Then, doesn't that make sense? Follow the life, follow the flowers. Don't do things erroneously and be strange. And then I think it leads to things like people working a lot over the winter time. Obviously, you have the bee system in place to ensure that, often a lot of times, but It's supposed to be a time of dormancy and deep thought and purification and cleansing from being outdoors in the dirt and whatnot, I believe. And then also, it is in the canonical life of all these seasons that come and go. I believe it also is this death, right? You're supposed to let the year pass and breathe easy and then come into something new, come into the light and march forward. So, a lot to think about here, but the essence of this is that it's a really easy topic to jump on because of the September through December nonsense that we have. And then here, furthermore, as I've stated, January and February have clear indicators that they are indeed the conclusion of our year, as it makes sense. So yeah, we're living in the clown world, and let's continue to get the grime out of our eyes. Come at you guys soon. Let me know what you guys think about all this. All right, have a wonderful day.